time to take a stand and stop the sexualization of our children. Action for Canada has created a notice of liability to assist you. The title of this NOL is Facilitating in Exposure of Minors to Sexually Explicit Educational Resources, Activities, and/or Events. The United Nations has mandated that all member nations implement the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Resource. CSE is a learning platform that was developed within the context of a program developed by UNESCO. This so-called resource sexualizes children at the earliest ages possible, and it's no surprise that it's causing great harm to our children, as well as attacking the traditional family unit. According to Section 163.1 and Section 152 of the Criminal Code, as well as the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, it's a criminal offence to sexualize and exploit children. Here at Action for Canada, we've been working to expose this evil agenda and to empower parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens to take a courageous stand. In an effort to assist you, we've created a page on our website where you will find an incredible assortment of information on this issue, including the various programs that have been introduced into our schools. Beyond the Basics is the resource used in Nova Scotia, WIN Sex Ed is used in Ontario, CSE is used in Manitoba, and SOGI 123 is used by the rest of the provinces. By introducing these programs into our educational system, our children and youth are being exposed to sexually explicit pornographic materials in the form of books, magazines, and comic strips. Our kids are also encouraged to become members of organizations that promote sexually deviant behavior and the exploitation of minors. Be sure to take advantage of this notice of liability, which will advise teachers, librarians, trustees, ministers, etc., that they will be held personally liable for exposing minors to any form of pornography or sexually explicit material, as well as any activities or organizations promoting sexual deviancy and the exploitation of minors. By using this valuable NOL, you have the ability to demand that the CSE learning resources be immediately and completely removed from libraries and the education system. That all of the books listed, including titles by the same authors, be immediately removed, and that all educational facilities, including libraries, cease and desist promotion of any and all activities, including performers and clubs that exploit our innocent, impressionable, and vulnerable children and youth. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. Here are some powerful actions you can take to protect our youth, no matter your age or station in life. Pull your children out of public schools and universities. Run, facilitate, join, or help with a homeschool group. Get involved in writing letters and serving notices of liability. Run for office as a school board trustee, mayor, or city councillor. Connect with an Action for Canada chapter near you. We cannot ignore this message. Our children and youth are being subjected to twisted ideologies using social justice as a means to indoctrinate and groom them, and we must protect them. Thank you for taking a stand to protect kids. If you like what we're doing at Action for Canada, please consider making a donation to support our ongoing work. And be sure to join a chapter near you. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
Hello, hello, and welcome. We're so glad you can join us this last Wednesday in November. We're pleased that Michelle Stirling is joining us once again, and the title of tonight's show is Native Saga, Bitter Roots of Sugarcane. It's November 27th, 2024, and this is the Empower Hour. Action for Canada is a grassroots movement reaching out to millions of Canadians and uniting our voices in opposition to the destructive policies tearing at the fabric of our nation. Through call to action campaigns, we educate, equip, mobilize, and empower citizens to take action. We are committed to protecting faith, family, and freedom. Tonight, we'd like to invite you to connect with like-minded, supportive people by joining an Action for Canada chapter near you. When you connect with a chapter, you'll be joining hands with people who are fighting for their rights and freedoms by being the boots on the ground. You'll be provided with effective resources to become actively involved in community affairs. You'll be able to reach out to all levels of government, and you'll have opportunities to educate others in your community. We're also encouraging citizens to run for office so we can take back all levels of government. Here at Action for Canada, we believe there is strength in numbers, and that by building chapters across this nation, we can mobilize an incredible army of like-minded citizens as we work together to protect our inalienable God-given rights. So be sure to sign up and join us. Coming on in just a few moments is Tanya Gaw, the founder and leader of Action for Canada. If you're new to the Empower Hour, Tanya and the Action for Canada team are on the front lines of educating and empowering Canadians to stand up for our rights and freedoms. In case you can't make it on a Wednesday, all of Tanya's weekly updates and previous Empower Hours are available for you to rewatch or to share with your family and friends. Now, before we head over to tonight's show, I'd like to introduce tonight's special guest speaker. I'm delighted to introduce tonight's special guest speaker, Michelle Stirling. Michelle is an author, researcher, columnist, and blogger, and she's also a repeat guest on the Empower Hour. If you haven't had a chance to watch Michelle's previous presentations, we encourage you to go to our website to catch up with the important information she shares. The title of tonight's show is Bitter Roots of Sugarcane, Exposing Native Activists. And we're so grateful that Michelle is here to have a conversation with us on this topic. And now, will you all please help me welcome Michelle Stirling. Welcome, Michelle. We're so pleased you can join us on the Empower Hour.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Heather. Oh, welcome, Michelle. I've been looking forward to this show. I was shocked when I had heard about sugarcane, and then at the same time, I was so grateful to see that you had already been doing a great deal of research and had responded with a well-researched Substack article, as well as the mini documentary that was available to everybody in the weekly email that Action for Canada sent out on Sunday night. And so I'm going to really encourage people to watch your mini documentary. We're going to have it available in the Empower Hour description, and I'll also be covering it in the weekly news update after the Empower Hour show tonight. And it was, as I did more research into it as well, I was actually quite horrified to find out, what the repercussions of this documentary, as you called it, a shockumentary, because of the amount of lies and fake news that are in it, and how it will incite hate and potentially we'll see many more church burnings. And people are so easily led astray. So first of all, thank you so much for the work that you've done. And I'm really looking forward to your presentation tonight as well.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the work you've done promoting this and the wonderful page you put together on it, and for helping people to have an opportunity to see it. I know it's a bit frustrating on the one hand that the film hasn't been widely available.
Mhm.
And, this is part of the problem, is that it's being played here and there at film festivals or whenever they can get a booking in a main theater. But then it only shows usually for a day or two here or there. So the film critics have had a field day because they've been able to see it and make comments on it. But the public hasn't had a chance to see it yet because it hasn't been in national distribution. So the film critics are basically writing the narrative of what happened at St. Joseph's Indian Residential School, which is also known as Caribou Indian Residential School, which is up at Williams Lake in British Columbia.
Mhm.
So they're writing a narrative of what they get from the film, but that's not the historical fact.
No,
So,
it's not, when I covered the information, it's because of you that I was able to, be able to put that page together. And I was like, oh my goodness, every Canadian has to see the message that is being, I want to say, co-opted or created in order to frame Canada as a genocidal nation in order for the globalists to come in and take over. I mean, this is a serious attack against the sovereignty of Canada. It is well planned, it's executed, but it is based just on a hill of lies. And I'm going to ask our viewers, the knee-jerk reaction has been from some who have fallen deeply into the government's scenario of the victimhood of the natives over these last decades. Many people don't want to now turn around and hear there's another side to this story, and why the government has been weaving this web of lies and using natives and exploiting them, actually, and using them as pawns to advance their agenda. And I mean, we're fighting hard on behalf of the natives. I mean, there are activists, there are globalists behind this agenda, just like they are behind climate change, just like they are about the invasion of mass immigrants from nations that are violent. Everything is being planned and strategized and laid out. And this is just one level of that attack. So I'm going to ask our viewers, rather than the knee-jerk reaction to reject the information that Michelle is going to provide, listen to what she has to say, see the documents and the evidence and the proof that she's providing, and so that you can have a better understanding that the very essence of Canada is bound to collapse. And I'm not exaggerating here. If we don't turn this around, this is one area where they are advancing quickly, and we need to put a stop to it.
yes, and sadly, like billions of dollars have been paid out to various Native groups and individuals. But for the most part, the actual Native community has not benefited
No.
from that. In fact, I think there's a Fraser Institute report that just came out showing that since Trudeau came to power, there's been triple the funding for Native and Indigenous issues.
Mm-hmm.
But things have actually gotten worse for most Indigenous people. So there's a small minority of elite within the Indigenous community and within the legal community. Francis Widdowson calls it the Aboriginal industry, that are skimming off millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, whereas the ordinary Indigenous people on reserve, most of them live in terrible poverty. As you know, many don't have fresh running water and access to services. So, where is all this money going? And it's not benefiting the people that it's intended for. And we, the taxpayer, are constantly being burdened with more and more demands over these spurious claims. And certainly there are and were some people who were harmed at Indian residential schools, but we have paid out billions of dollars in compensation to those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make the pain go away, but theoretically, that is the platform from which you then go forward. You don't go backward and say, oh, and this also is something that I'm going to have a grievance about. So, where does it end? Because at some point, there won't be any money for anyone, and there will be rage on both sides. And, this is something that I hope by showing or exposing the manipulations of evidence within sugarcane, that people will see it for what it is and not be enraged, that we will find some way to say, wait a minute, let's stop playing these games
Mm-hmm.
and let's try to address the real issues and bring Canada back together again as a country and go forward together.
Right. I mean that Kim and I were talking, my national chapter leader coordinator, and she just went, we're all image bearers of God and therefore should all be equal under the law. Our Constitution, our Charter says that we should all be equal under the law. And when we look at it, if the UN and the globalists were really concerned about fair treatment of individuals, I mean, wars take place throughout history. Are they going to overturn all of those? The Muslims have come in and raided Christian nations, raped and pillaged. That led to the Crusades. The Christians and the Catholics came together and put a stop to it. And nobody is saying, the Muslims need to take the land back or pay, hundreds of billions of
Reparations.
dollars, to make it right. 1 in 4 women are sexually abused. There's life is rough. It's like life is tough. And there was over 600 tribes when the Europeans came to Canada. They were all infighting. A civilized civilization hadn't been formed. And there was scalpings, beheading, there was slavery of Europeans. I was reading about one interesting story where a ship had come from Europe and the natives had beheaded everyone on the ship except for 2 men, and he was put into slavery. So we have to be very careful that 150 years later or more, when people begin to retell the story, not based on history and facts, that, it's obviously going to lead down a wrong path. And it is not out of disrespect for anybody. It's not to say there wasn't harm done. There is in every culture. And we came in signing treaties. We didn't come in beheading and raping, pillaging, and murdering people. And so we need to put a perspective on it. And when we come now, hundreds of billions of dollars had been paid out. And the last thing I'll say before turning it over is that the people paying for this right now are Canadian taxpayers who have done no harm to the Indigenous community. And what most people, there's resentment growing regarding this. This is unsustainable, the amount of money that's being paid out. It's not fair. It's not right. And I don't want to see a bigger problem coming into the picture. This is not going to go in a good direction. It's not going to have a peaceful end unless the natives understand, the ones that are being exploited understand, we're on your side. We're fighting a really big war here, and we are being criticized by people on our side and on their side. And we really need to see who our common enemy is and come together and really focus on peacefully moving forward and how we do that. So, Michelle, I just want to give you the floor, and I look forward to your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. So thank you very much for having me on the show. And I want to get to my screen here. So tonight I want to just go over some key points from the movie Sugarcane. You will be able to see it soon on December 9th. It's supposed to start streaming on National Geographic or preview there. And then it's going to be streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu. I don't see a cinematic distribution for it. It has been shown in a number of different cinemas. I was able to see it twice. In my background, I am a filmmaker and television producer, so when I saw it, I knew there were a number of things wrong. I also write a lot about Canadian history, and I saw many of the things in the film that were incorrect. So I want to also thank my colleague Nina Green for all of her amazing detailed research. But let me walk you through a bit of an overview, and then I also want to show you toward the end why this matters so much, because there's a new report out from Kimberly Murray, the special interlocutor on missing children and unmarked graves related to Indian residential schools. And this report is going to have geopolitical consequences for Canada, and this film, Sugarcane, would be probably used as evidence to support the claims in that report. But let's talk about sugarcane first. So what happens to a society when the truth goes up in flames? Most people have heard of the Kamloops First Nation claim of human remains and mass graves of Indigenous children announced on May 27, 2021, allegedly found in the old apple orchard near the Kamloops Residential School, the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. But there's a new horror story, this time on film. Sugarcane is a new independent documentary produced and directed by investigative journalist Emily Cassie and co-directed by Julian Brave Noisecat, who is a descendant of people who attended St. Joseph's Indian Residential School. And this statue is at St. Joseph's. In fact, they kind of use it as a motif. This is obviously some lichen growing on the statue of Madonna and Child, but they liken it to bloodstains. So Sugarcane has a 100% fresh rating by film critics on Rotten Tomatoes, which you can see here. So 53 reviews, and all of them give it 100%, which is amazing. And this is really how films get picked up for distribution. And in fact, Sugarcane won an award at the Sundance Film Festival, and National Geographic subsequently picked it up for distribution. It also recently won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Political Documentary and Best True Crime Documentary. But it's not true. And the crime is the blood libel Sugarcane foists on Roman Catholics and Canadian history. Sugarcane conflates two true stories to create one big lie. So I did a mini documentary to deconstruct the lie. It's called The Bitter Roots of Sugarcane. So just to give you a bit of background here, just after Kamloops claimed unmarked graves and missing children, so did Williams Lake First Nation, which is some 300 kilometers north of Kamloops. So you can see it up here. Kamloops is down here. And Sugarcane is the name of the local reserve near Williams Lake. And if we go closer on the Williams Lake area, this is the area we'll be talking about today. Williams Lake is here. St. Joseph's Mission, it was originally a mission, then it became the Indian Residential School, also known as Caribou Residential School, and Canham Lake. And you can see that between Williams Lake and Canham Lake Reserve, it's about an hour-and-a-half drive. There's also another community there called Alkali Lake, and it was famous in the 1960s, 70s, and was written up about in 1987 in the LA Times because 100% of the people in the town, including children, were alcoholics. And it was called Alcohol Lake by the locals. And alcohol is a feature of the lives of the people in Sugarcane, but it's hardly mentioned in the film. So about a half a year after the claim of mass graves and human remains at Kamloops, the Williams Lake First Nation came out with 93 as our number. So the film Sugarcane essentially documents the Williams Lake First Nation search for missing children. And it also weaves together a father-son story of reconciliation. And it also blood libels the Roman Catholic Church and Canadian history. Here's what most film critics saw. And I picked the review from the Christian Science Monitor because Christian Science Monitor has a motto to do no harm to anyone. And of course, a film critic, especially if they're watching a film distributed by National Geographic, would never think that they'd have to fact check the film. They just assume that National Geographic did that. But here's the key points that the Christian Monitor reviewer had to say. That first of all, the filmmakers are a veteran investigative journalist and a celebrated writer whose estranged father, Ed Archie Noiscat, is an accomplished sculptor who struggled with alcoholism. The documentary's furious emotional center is the disclosure of Ed's secretive birth at the St. Joseph's Mission Residential School, where he was subsequently abused, to a mother who was raped by a priest, and only the chance discovery of the newborn by a milkman saved him from the infanticide that befell other such unwanted babies. That sounds horrible. And almost all of the critics echo these kinds of points. So there was a true story. There was a newborn baby found in the garbage burner at St. Joseph's Indian Residential School near Williams Lake, BC. And it is true, it was Ed Archie Noiscat. But it wasn't a secret. It was in the Williams Lake Tribune in 1959, and the mother was a 20-year-old who went to jail for a year. And she is the grandmother of the director, Julian Brave Noiscat, and the mother of Ed Archie Noiscat, who's a lead performer. Now, all three of them are related to the film's lead investigator, Charlene Beaulieu. That means they all knew the father was a man named Ray Peters, who had 7 more children with her and 9 other children with 5 other women. So not a priest, and not raped, at least not by a priest. And it was the mother who put the baby in the incinerator, in the garbage burner at the school. Now, why would she have done that? Well, as it says here, that she was 20, she was from Canham Lake Reserve, and it says that she was coming home from Williams Lake. And so when we saw that map, you could see that it's about an hour and a half drive to Canham Lake from Williams Lake. And I suspect, but I don't know, that she probably went into labor along the way, and the school was a familiar place, so she pulled in there. Now, she had done a nursing course in Vancouver and was able to deliver the baby herself, which is amazing. But as most people know, especially the women on this webinar, delivering a child is like running a marathon. People are often in shock after. It's a very physically difficult, emotionally draining experience, and certainly to be just driving home and going into labor, that would be shocking. So who knows why exactly she claims that she thought the baby was dead, and so tried to get rid of the baby's body. We don't know what happened. I don't even know if the filmmakers actually had her permission to tell this story in the way they did, because we never actually see an interview with her. And I'm not going to spoil the ending of the film for you, but to me, it just tore my heart apart. But the point is, the father was Ray Peters, not a priest. So Sugarcane presents a story wherein viewers conclude that priests at St. Joseph's Indian Residential School impregnated students and incinerated their unwanted babies in the school's garbage burner, that this infanticide was systemic, and that Ed Archie Noiscat was the only lucky survivor thanks to the dairyman who found him. True story. There was a priest at St. Joseph's Indian Residential School in the 1960s who broke his vows and had an affair with a 22-year-old seamstress employee. She did have a baby. It was put up for adoption. This was a consensual relationship, even though it was inappropriate, both because he broke his vows and also because she was an employee of the schools, and therefore in a unbalanced power relationship with him. But she was not a student. She wasn't a consenting adult, and students could only attend the school until age 16. So Ed's mother could not have also been a student there. Perhaps she was years before, but not at the time that she gave birth. So sugarcane interviewees tell lurid stories too, and stories are not evidence. So there are about probably 7 to 10 other people that they interview. Each of them tell a very lurid story about their experience at the school. And some of the stories may be true, but as with my interview with Nicholas Wansbutter, who's a criminal defense lawyer, he said, stories are not evidence. Like, they're quite compelling because they're personal stories, but that's not evidence. It's only evidence if you go to court and you have it backed up with tangible evidence, proof of some kind, more witness statements, documents, that the times, the dates, the names are all correct. So just having a testimonial statement from someone is very compelling, but it's not evidence. So please watch my mini documentary Rebuttal to get all the details. It's free of charge. It's on Vimeo and on Rumble, and it's linked within all the documents that Tanya has provided. And also on my Substack, there's a very detailed discussion about the evidence that I dug up with the help of Nina. So why does this matter? Like, who cares if it's a film and somebody wants to make a film this way? Well, aside from the truth going up in flames, dozens of churches have been vandalized or burnt down since the Kamloops claim of mass graves. And coincidentally, Kimberly Murray has just released her final report condemning Canada of a continuing genocide and crimes against humanity over the issue of Indian residential schools, unmarked graves, and missing children. So this report came out on October 29th. It's about 1,000 pages long. The executive summary alone is 300 pages. And right from the get-go, it makes the most heinous accusations against Canada. And these are not founded in actual evidence. So the report attempts to establish genocide as fact, but this is a phantom genocide with no list of names. Now, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission claimed only a cultural genocide had occurred, meaning that the children who went to school, because they were separated from their families, they weren't out on the trap line, they weren't out hunting, they weren't learning beading at home, or whatever the rituals, or what kind of medicinal plants or spiritual activities of the Native people that their forefathers practiced, that they were separated from that, so they lost those cultural attributes. That's the only thing that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission concluded. But here in Kimberly Murray's report, look at this quote: "The final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada provides indisputable historical evidence of genocide, crimes against humanity, and mass human rights violations." That's absolutely not true. Again, the people who came to the Truth and Reconciliation meetings were not cross-examined. They simply gave a recollection and in a large witnessing circle. So again, as I discussed with Nicholas Wansbutter, eyewitness testimony is not reliable, especially long-term historic recollections. And you have to realize that a lot of the children who went to Indian residential schools were orphans. So of course they would be imprinted with the sense of loss, ambiguous loss, of graves, of death, the last thing that they might have been involved with before they were taken away to the school might have been their parents' or grandparents' funeral, or whoever their caregiver was. Or, perhaps they, like back in the day, a lot of people died of tuberculosis, and quite often their death was precipitated by a coughing paroxysm where, you know, a tubercle would burst in the lungs and there'd be like blood everywhere. So, you know, these horrific things would have imprinted on a small child's mind quite deeply and could have been transferred to their memories of the school. So Kimberly Murray's report goes on to say, survivors attest to the bodies of babies being placed in incinerators at Indian residential schools. Well, now you see, we have many survivors and many schools suddenly being suggested here. So what happens if you're in a sharing circle and people tell the story of Ed Archie Noisecat being found in the incinerator? And then this mythology goes from being, oh, his mom put him in the garbage burner, to, oh yeah, well, that's because, you know, a priest got her pregnant. Yeah, I remember there was a priest there who did that. Yeah, you know, so all these stories get conflated. And in these sharing circles, then suddenly everybody has a story like that. Now, this presents a serious geopolitical risk to Canada because right after the Kamloops find, what happened a month after the Kamloops find, on the 21st of June, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People legislation passed in the House of Commons and received royal assent. And on June 22nd, China accused Canada of genocide, and they cited the May find of the Kamloops band as evidence. And here we see in Al Jazeera, we see that they are saying the remains of 215 children, some as young as 3 years old, were found in British Columbia. Well, that's not true. The only thing that happened in Kamloops was that they ran a ground penetrating radar search and they found some anomalies. And in fact, this past year, on the third anniversary of Kamloops' find, they issued a statement saying that it was a time for reflection on these anomalies. So suddenly we're not talking about human remains, no children, no missing children. We're talking about anomalies and not mass graves. That's a pretty big difference. But none of these news stories have been corrected. So just as the media spun the narrative of human remains, mass graves, nefarious deeds, and burials, so now the film critics are spinning the narrative of incinerated babies. This is a phantom genocide with no list of names of missing children. There are no missing persons reports filed over 113 years that have not been resolved. And the missing children cannot be found if they are ashes. But if these missing children once existed, surely they had names. What are their names? So before you say, oh, Michelle, you're too hard on everyone, you're mean, you're a denier, you should go to jail. Look, I do empathize with the people who suffer from ambiguous losses. And I think that that's a significant problem in the Indigenous community. Over the years, they've had many more people die proportionately than in the off-reserve community. And that's exacerbated right now with the fentanyl crisis. And the hopelessness for many young people, suicide, and a suicide is even featured in Sugarcane. But these ambiguous losses, to my mind, are being exacerbated by the mass grave, mass psychosis. So, for instance, this was a kiosk at one of the Truth and Reconciliation meetings. And I'm sure this kiosk at the TRC meetings horrified most people who came. The very first line says, students living at the residential schools faced experiences which, for most, ranged from degradation to abuse and death. Now, there are some schools like Cecilia Jeffries, and Robert McBain has written a book about this, where the students were writing letters to the principal and his wife and saying, "Dear Mom and Dad, I so enjoyed what you taught me. thank you so much. Love student name. Like he has hundreds of these letters from students who were so grateful. Nina Green has written an article about the nuns and their diaries, taking excerpts from their diaries. It's called Our Dear Children. The nuns adored the children as if they were their own. They took them for picnics, like Chief Wilton Littlechild. They used to take the children for picnics on the lawn of his grandfather. So, some genocide. So I think there's a tremendous lack of balance in how the Truth and Reconciliation reports are being presented to the public. The content was skewed, in my view, and certainly this type of entry information, when you have kind of a witnessing group, anyone who wanted to say something positive would, of course, have been like afraid to say a word because, oh my God, you mean people were dying there? So sugarcane blood libels the Roman Catholic Church and Canadian history. I expect more church burnings and perhaps even personal attacks against people who are obviously Catholic or Christian. I mean, obviously by their attire or wearing a cross or such like. And film critics persistently refer to the unpunished crimes of the Catholic Church. So, that makes people feel like, well, I'll get that vengeance myself. And oddly, the film critics had no sensible questions about the film's premise. How can that be? Sugarcane will be on National Geographic December 9th and then streaming on Disney and Hulu just in time for Christmas and the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. So remember, Kimberly Murray and NDP MP Leah Gazan of Winnipeg Centre want to silence critics and questions with Bill C413, threatening criminal penalties and jail. So as a Catholic friend said to me, the truth shall set you free. The truth shall set Canada free. Thank you for watching.
Well, thank you, Michelle. That was, like I said, amazing the way that you've done the research. These simple facts that people, if they took the time, could find themselves, but everybody is relying on what the media is telling them, whatever the narrative the government is pushing out right now. And do you have any idea why they're willing to give into this psyop and to demonize Canada so quickly and give into this? I mean, the evidence is, at least in my years of being born and raised in Canada, is that this has been an amazing country. I have felt so blessed to be here. And the freedoms that we have been given by the Fathers of Confederation, those who came to this country, that they've created a civilization from which we could all thrive. So why is it you think Canadians are so willing to so quickly throw that all away right now?
Well, I think this is the problem with atrocity propaganda, because it's so shocking. Even when I heard about the mass graves at Kamloops, I felt shocked and saddened. But because I've studied quite a bit of, Canadian history, I immediately thought, oh dear, they've probably found a mass grave from an epidemic, because there were epidemics in Canada that wiped out large groups of people in a very short period of time. Like Spanish flu, people might be well in the morning and dead that night. When you have a health emergency like that, you have to bury all those people quickly. And usually there's also a lack of manpower, human power, to get out there and dig graves. So whatever pit you can dig, that's where everybody goes, and that's it, they're done. So that's what I thought. I thought there'd been probably a discovery of a mass grave of an epidemic. And I do know that they exist in Canada. but I knew that most people wouldn't know that. And I knew that most people, a lot of people in secular society seem to like things like horror films, like Catholic horror films. There's a whole genre of that. And there's another fellow named Kevin Annett, who is a defrocked United Church minister, who made a couple of movies and has written a number of articles and books about the statements from a fellow named Willie Coombs, who was an alcoholic who died of TB. Now, he had very big, wild ravings about all kinds of spectacular atrocities that happened supposedly at these Indian residential schools. Um, but when you look at the facts and evidence, nothing jives. But you see, when you have TB, or if you are a serious alcoholic, one of the things that happens is that people have these hallucinations. Um, so uh, if you read Grave Error, I don't know if I have it here. I had it. If you read the book Grave Error, there's a whole chapter by Frances Widdowson called Billy Remembers, and she goes through and point by point finds where it just doesn't add up for what he's claiming. But millions of people have seen the Kevin Annett film. Then I can't remember the name of it. Even Noam Chomsky was convinced that there'd been some kind of a genocide here. But again, there's no list of names. And the average person in Canada knows very little about Canadian history. So that's one thing. It's a fairly secular community now. So people don't understand the value of Catholic and Christian burial rites.
Mhm.
So they, for instance, in Kimberly Murray's, she had an interim report called Sites of Truth, Sites of Conscience. And she found some historic photos of children in a graveyard. They're all dressed up. There's little girls. They've got nice little, sun hats on. And there's some boys there. And they're all in a graveyard. And there's a couple of graves that are dug. She sees this as a horrible thing. Well, Catholics look at it and go, oh, they're doing the cleanup of the cemetery and tidying up the graves and pulling weeds and, making it look nice to respect the dead, right? So if you don't have that kind of religious background and you look at these old photographs, you go, oh, that's a terrible thing. Or there's another photo of boys carrying a coffin. I mean, they're teenage boys. Uh, and she sees this as a crime against humanity. Well, this was back in the day when many people died, and many of these residential schools were quite remote. So if someone died, you had to bury them. First of all, for dignity of the body, for the resurrection, as most Christians believe in, most Catholics believe in. This is an essential thing to treat the body with respect. And of course, there's also the public sanitation, public health aspect. You want the children to know that it's an honor to escort a loved one to the grave. It's not a crime against humanity. It's, you're giving them the final dignity. And also that, this is a public health issue. These children will grow up to be adults and they have to know what to do when someone dies. So, um, but she doesn't have that historical context in any of her reports. And so the confluence of Sugarcane and its film critic narrative going so widely across society and being so immediately accepted. I mean, this is to me the oddest thing. None of the film critics question the premise of the film. I
Well,
suppose that they think, well, since they're all family, they must know. Because you do get the feeling in the film, and it is said here and there that, this is my aunt or, my dad. So you get the feeling like, oh, well, I guess they all know. But what they do all know, for instance, that key point about Ray Peters being the father, and he's
Mhm.
not a priest, um, they left that part out. That's a very important point, right?
Right. Yeah, and he's
So
fathered many, many more children by 5 other women. And, the details, as you say, and when they had promoted this movie and launched it 10 months ago, I know the makers of the film then did sort of a world trip. And I would believe that they did this intentionally. The globalists need to destroy Canada. They're trying to do it through the UN global agenda, the migration of individuals flooding into Canada to destroy our sovereignty from this angle. But they're also attacking Western nations with all of this white supremacy and colonialism and the rest of it. And so I almost think this may be a strategic part of the plan. And I do think there needs to be opposition to this film before it comes out on December 9th. Action for Canada will be putting together an action plan, and we're going to ask our viewers to join us in this call to action, because we need to write to some of the individuals, ministers who are involved and behind this, because literally this film, when it's released, it is going to endanger the lives of individuals, and it's a smear campaign. It's not based on facts. They're exploiting the natives as well, and that's why we're on the front line trying to defend Canada and protect its sovereignty for the future of our children. But that means when I say the future of our children, I don't want to hear about a Native Canadian, Chinese Canadian, Muslim Canadian. It just needs to be Canadians from here on forward. Otherwise, there are always bad actors who are having the self-interest within each of those communities to advance an agenda. And those activists are the ones that are, a real threat to Canadians and to the existence of this nation. And so in this particular matter, I think it's very, very important to call out the directors and the producer of this smear campaign. And I would, I'm not about banning films, but then they at least need to say this is based on fiction. This is not based on facts.
that's right. Yeah. And, and people don't realize that in one of the other webinars that I did with you, I talked about how UNDRIP jumped the shark and why the various actors of the world are interested in Canada. Canada is rich in critical minerals. These are all the minerals that you need for high tech. And most of these deposits are on or near First Nations reserves. So, but rather than coming to Canada and saying, hey, you know what, we would like to develop this copper mine near the blah, blah, blah reserve, and we're going to work with the Canadian government and with the local First Nation band. We'll set up employment for them, and we will work together to make this a win-win-win for everybody. And here's our offer or our plan. What it seems to be is that if they can destroy enough of Canada, and if through things like UNDRIP, the First Nations can be theoretically or legally established as their own actor, then they are in a position to do direct negotiations with these other parties. Now, you have to understand, and most people don't understand this either, most First Nations in Canada are nothing more than a village. So, or a town, or maybe a small city. I think the Six Nations are about 12,000 in population. And Kamloops band, I think it's around 1,800 maybe, and half of the people don't live on reserve. So, when people say they're going to have an Indigenous-led project, that's why they say Indigenous-led, because there's not enough people to actually have all the human resources that you need to, say, start a mine. You don't have mining engineers in the band. You don't have, economists in the band. You don't have accountants in the band. You don't have, you need a whole big community. You need probably like 500,000 people or 100,000 people to have any sense of the human resources required for a specific kind of project like this. Therefore, what will happen is these foreign actors who want access to these critical resources will play their card by establishing an indigenous-led individual or small group of elites, and then probably a consulting firm like, say, Deloitte or KPMG or McKinsey, one of these big, huge consulting firms. Like Deloitte, for instance, has 450,000 employees. In Canada, the population of First Nations is 1.8 million. And so they have like what, a quarter, an eighth of the population of all the First Nations in Canada in Deloitte Global, right?
Right.
So what I'm saying is that Canada will not benefit from that contract. Only a few people of the First Nations will benefit from it. And at some point, it will be marauders taking whatever they want. How would a First Nation enforce any kind of contract there? The rare metals war is primarily being fought by China. There are other actors who want it. We also have the 50% of the world's oil in the free world in Canada. Most of that's in Alberta. We also have our massive boreal forest. We have all these natural resources. And and that's another thing. At the climate conference that just finished in Baku, they made an agreement to trade carbon credits. So one idea that has been put forward is that First Nations people would be land guardians or water guardians or fire keepers. So they actually would just be observing their reserve, but that land would become a nature-based carbon credit system. So, there's all these kind of schemes that ordinary people don't know anything about. And I would suspect that most Aboriginal people know nothing about them either. Only sort of the elite group knows about them and knows how they're going to cash in on it.
Well, and this
So
is
those
why,
are the reasons why we're under attack.
Yeah, and this is why the chiefs, especially here in BC and Ontario, are signing these secret treaties and deals. And the Bible's very clear. It says, when you go into a land, do not sign treaties. And, it's almost like there's a curse on the land because of the treaties. That's the one thing about our forefathers. They say, why did you do that? It was completely outside of scripture, because at some point there's going to become dissension. And the Europeans offered a thriving nation with a rule of law. They created a civilization. We've been a very rich nation. We've offered so much already to the natives. And now what's happening, right, is that the people, the Canadian taxpayers who are paying for this now, are feeling disrespected, unappreciated. We're tapped out. They can't put food on their own table. It's robbery. This is a massive wealth transfer. And as far as our rich resources is concerned, the World Economic Forum is behind UNDRIP and DRIPA in British Columbia. It's like $1 trillion business. And so they don't want to come in and say, hey, you know what, we'll put some money here and put your people to work. And they want to own this. They want to take over. They want to have full control of all of the water resources and the lumber industry, whatever resource industry you can imagine. And, in favor of large corporations, big business, and the little person is going to have nothing. So if the natives think, if they're not listening to Klaus Schwab, or they're not familiar with him, when he said you'll own nothing and be happy, the natives need to look at the last 9.5 years with Justin Trudeau and ask themselves, does this Liberal government actually care about you? Have they shown any evidence to help you thrive as a community of people? And the answer is a big no. They have been swapping a whole lot of funds with corrupt chiefs. And as you and I, we feel like we have to emphasize, we're not saying that all chiefs are bad. We're not saying that the whole Native community is bad. We're saying there's Native activists, there's chiefs who are activists. They are profiteering from this on the backs of hardworking Canadians. And the 150 years has proven that our relationship with the natives and what we're offering them is not working. And so they want many of them want the Native Act torn up. The treaties have to, be taken out, and we need to form a new relationship, but it needs to be a united one as all Canadians living in Canada together. And we need to pay our taxes equally, and we need to work. And because there is something very rewarding about earning a living, about buying a home, about buying your first car as a kid, even if mine was a crappy little 71 Volkswagen Bug that my mom and dad gave to me. And they say, but you got to replace all the tires and rebuild the motor. And it was like, thanks, mom and dad. But you know what? It taught me to respect my vehicle. It taught me to appreciate things. And we need to pass on these time-honored traditions and gifts to every child in Canada. And we all need to have the same opportunities. And right now, and the one last other thing I want to say is that Canada, we're going to have Brian Peckford on next week, and we're going to be talking about how Canada is, with a capital IS, a Christian nation. That is the foundation of this nation. And it's a fact. We could do, a whole report on it. Come listen to Brian Peckford next week, because he certainly knows that everybody that the signatories of the charter were all Christian individuals. In that, the Bible says, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's. And so that means we all need to be paying taxes, whether we like it or not, whether the taxes are fair. That is a biblical fact and a truth, that when we are obedient, God will bless us. And to tithe in whatever ways, to manage our resources well in our funds, and also to help the widow and the orphan, which is what we as Christians have done since the onset of the development of this country. And yet
And
we're
that's
being
what
demonized for it.
And that's what Indian residential schools did. A
Yes.
lot of orphans went there. And one thing I just want to mention, I'm starting a t-shirt campaign. I don't have my store up and running yet, but I want to start the theme going through people's minds that, every living child matters most of all.
Yes.
We can't keep thinking about just graves and supposedly dead children. I mean, a lot of the relatives of many of the children in these graves don't exist anymore. Many families just died out completely. This is partly why some of these graves have been abandoned. There was nobody to continue caring for it. And this is also common off reserve as well. That also happened in pioneer communities. But I think we have to change the focus for everyone, for all our children, that every living child matters most of all.
Yes.
And we have to elevate our living children and turn our attention to them and help them through this muddled world, because in the past few years, things have become very messed up and muddled and uncertain for them. So I
I
hope that's a
agree.
theme that people will carry forward.
I would like that to be, what we finish off with here on this program, because I want to speak life into Canadians. And in 2016, when I began the journey addressing the sexual orientation and gender identity program that was being implemented into the schools and the LGBTQ community, the government and the radical trans and LGBTQ activists, again, let's focus on the activists, were just determined to victimize this community of kids. And I would be saying, who thrives when they're being victimized? You've got
Yeah.
to be an overcomer.
Yeah.
I'm a victim of abuse. And I remember coming to a point when I was an adult and beginning to realize, of the childhood abuse that I had experienced, unbeknownst to my family. And I remember coming to a point as an adult saying, I'll be a victim as long as I choose to be a victim. And in that meant that I can try forever to try to deal, with the issues of the past. And we need to do that, and we need to heal, and we move forward. And that's where I went from victim to victor. And I want to speak that life into the LGBTQ community, because many of them have experienced abuse, whether it
Mhm.
was sexual abuse, whether it was physical abuse, whether it was parents that were, alienated from them, whatever it was. But the Indigenous community as well has experienced that abuse. And in your article, you had mentioned that I think it was something like only 1/3 of the Indigenous children were actually put into the schools. Many of the parents had registered the
Oh,
children
yes.
in the schools themselves. But the point in that being was that, they want to blame the Europeans, and they want to blame the residential schools for the mass alcoholism and the abuse that goes on in this community, and then perpetuate that into today. And I just want to encourage people, stop doing it. You are never going to have victory. It doesn't matter how much money the government gives you, they are exploiting you. And we want to see you victorious over all of this so that we can all live as Canadians under one rule of law in peace in this nation. And I really think that the Europeans who came here really blessed us, and we need to be grateful and thankful for that. And I'm not going to stop fighting, in proclaiming Canada as a Christian nation, because I've looked and studied all of our other nations that are based on other so-called religions, which I believe are demonic entities, because any other religion has a false god entity to it, and who's the maker of that but the devil himself? And that's a side issue. But when you look at 56 Islamic majority countries, people are living under oppression, really good people who want to escape that, but that's their culture, that's based on their belief system. If you look at China, you look at North Korea, you look at Hindus, and it's, we are the winners in the West, and it was Christianity which was the base that gave us that. Michelle.
Yes, I would like to also say that, sadly, in the Indigenous community, there's about 500,000 Roman Catholics and probably about 200,000 or more Indigenous people of other Christian denominations, and some Seventh-day Adventists, some it's very small, but there are some Jewish Indian people and a few Jehovah's Witness. So anyway, there's a huge community that once cherished their traditions, and now many of them live in fear because of all the things that have happened with the residential schools. They're afraid to, engage in their faith because in their own community, it's created a division. And I
Right.
think that that's probably the worst loss, is that people who have this faith that would carry them through are now faced with a situation where it's very awkward, socially awkward, because reserves are very small numerically, and everyone knows each other, they're related to each other, very nepotistic. So it's quite difficult to step out of the conformity. And also, some of the reserves are fraught with criminal gangs. So, faith could really help pull people through, and they're being denied even access to that. And that's just cruel. And, as we know, some of these very old Aboriginal churches burnt down in the vandalism and arson. All of the memories of the families that went there for their christening, for their confirmation, for their marriage, for the burial of the forefathers, all of that lost, up in flames because of whatever maniac is running around out there trying to destroy Christianity in Canada and in the Aboriginal community. So it's a very small proportion of Aboriginal people who follow Native spirituality as their
Right.
core faith.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Michelle. And I'd imagine it even is dividing families. I mean, we all have, within the Christian community, we have unbelieving relatives, but we get together at Christmas or at birthday parties or at weddings, and we love each other. We get along, and I'm not looking at them, opposing them because they're a non-Christian person. But this is a very hot topic, and the propaganda has been so divisive and so malicious that I can see how this community would be suffering further on that front as well. So thank you for pointing that out. We're really up against something, and I just thank you for your courage. I will be on the front line here, being courageous as well and speaking against this. I know that for Action for Canada, when we brought this up a year ago and I created the page with the report, about UNDRIP and the natives and the lies that are being perpetuated in order to advance a global agenda, there were people that unsubscribed, that stopped donating. I have a couple of people right now who are maliciously attacking me, even individuals who call themselves Christians, and saying that I am racist and I don't have compassion towards the natives. And I'm like, you are outright, I want to say out of your mind, but that is completely and utterly false. I love the natives more than anybody. I love every Canadian equally, and I want to see us all having the same opportunities. But when I see the natives being used for an agenda to destroy what God has created and gifted us with, I look at it that Action for Canada is uncompromising to the Word of God. And if it says that we shouldn't be signing treaties, then the Christians, who are part of Action for Canada, or those who are attacking me, understanding where are your loyalties to, it should be first to the Word of God. And if it's a matter of the Indigenous Christians as well, that maybe are upset about some of the things or misunderstanding what I'm saying, I'm like, okay, well, if you are indeed a Christian, are you uncompromising to the Word of God? Are you paying your taxes? Where is this? Do you understand that our first commitment in this country as a sovereign Christian nation is to God and the Word of God? And so I just want to encourage people with that there's nothing racist about anything I'm doing. Until Justin Trudeau, you said, whoever it is that's behind this, of the burning of the churches, and I said, I know who it is. Justin Trudeau is behind this because he refuses to hold those
Announce
accountable
it.
who are perpetuating these lies and put a stop to it. But the global plan is division. They're doing it within every culture that they possibly can within Canada. And this is one of the ones that they're hurting real bad. And they're hurting Canadians because they're robbing hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers. Every taxpayer. That's where the money is coming from. That's a fact. Don't hold that against me. But anyways, Michelle, is there any closing comment you'd like to make to our viewers?
Just one thing, please do have a look at the report that I put on the screen called Ambiguous Losses. It's on my website, michellestirling.com. And the reason I'd like you to look at it is to understand why I think that there is, layers and layers and layers, generations of losses that have not been emotionally dealt with in the Aboriginal community, which has led to many of the dysfunctions and many of the problems that we see today, that people are trying to find their way out. And it's my feeling that, and from also a professional perspective, I used to be a career counselor, that, if you're trying to solve the wrong problem, that being blaming Indian residential schools, then you're not going to solve the real problem, which I think is the ambiguous losses. And I think if people read that, they'll see that, like you say, I have a very compassionate view. I do want to see people healed and to lead fulfilling lives. And the other thing that you can read is the other report that I showed on screen, Confronting Media Irresponsibility. And that's deconstructing a report that Sean Carlton and Reed, what's his name? Gerbrand did out of the University of Manitoba. where they pretended that no, the media never really spun the story of mass graves. That didn't happen, but it did happen. So that one also gives you a lot of deconstruction of the media narrative and also a lot of historical background about why and how Canada and our history is very, very different from that of the United States. We always had constructive trading partnerships here in Canada with Aboriginal people. In the US, they had Indian wars. So that's a stark difference, and it's right along the border. So anyway, I'll shut up now. I thank you very much for letting me tell my story and offer my insights. And feel free to get in touch with me. Please do watch the movie, the mini doc that I made, and please leave a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Facts matter. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right. Well, that was, like I say, it's a controversial issue, but it's less controversial once you realize the facts and that our hearts are in the right place. And sometimes, people know that if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes other people's truths. So when you start speaking the truth again, it is first a rejection, and then people have to mull it over and chew on it a bit. And if they'll actually take the time to be open to listen and see that there's evidence and facts to support what we're saying, then the truth shall indeed set us free, as Michelle had said. So very grateful for her research capabilities. We're going to have the documentary that she's created in the description below, and we ask that you would please give us a thumbs up when you watch this video. Please share it. And also when you go to Michelle's Substacks to research and read the reports, it's very important to do that. I encourage you even to send it to your elected officials. I will be creating a call to action campaign on this issue. I do believe that the producers and directors of this so-called documentary have to be called out, because I believe there's lives at risk, and I don't want to see any more churches burning down. And that's why I say facts matter, and we have a responsibility. I always say knowledge is power, and when you have it, you need to share it. So please help us by forwarding this information on to those who can actually make a difference, and also to your fellow Canadians and co-workers and family, so that they won't fall into CTV, CBC News, and global news propaganda. All right. Thank you so much. The weekly news update is coming up next.
Do you want to look great and protect your rights? Join Action for Canada with our stylish protective gear. Our slim fit women's t-shirts are like a second skin, giving you the power to tackle any challenge. Made from a super soft blend of 90% cotton and 10% polyester, it's perfect for your everyday heroes that want to tell the world that they have had enough. Our men's t-shirts are like your everyday armor. Same quality, same comfort, and designed to keep your heroic look intact. And if you need extra protection, our mid-weight hoodies are here to save the day. With a pre-shrunk blend of 60% cotton and 40% polyester, these hoodies are your trusty sidekick against the cold. Plus, the pouch pocket is perfect for storing snacks because every hero needs their fuel. Deflect negativity with our 11-ounce ceramic mugs. They're dishwasher and microwave safe and perfect for holding your favorite beverage or your morning dose of justice. Our 100% cotton canvas shopping totes with double carry handles and prints on both sides. These totes can carry your groceries and your mission to save the planet. Stay warm and stylish with our form-fitting toques. Perfect for winter adventures. Made from acrylic and polyester, they fit most sizes with an adjustable cuff, keeping your brain warm for all those brilliant ideas. And don't forget our 6-panel structured caps, designed to protect your head from too many UV rays or bad hair days. Every purchase helps support our movement to protect Canadian rights. Visit Action for Canada now and gear up for the fight, so together we can protect what matters most and help make a difference.
In every heart we feel his light, and through his love we win the fight. Action for Canada, we unite, joining hands we're for the fight. Action for the Canada, we stand tall. With love and faith we can win it
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me on the weekly news update. It is November 27th, 2024. This is the last Wednesday of November. We are less than a month away for Christmas, and I'm really looking forward to it. I spent time in my yard. I actually do the midnight shift because my days are so busy. If I have to use any kind of electric tools, I try to do it before the noise bylaw so my neighbors won't complain. But I've manicured my lawn is cut, my leaves are down, and my son came over the other day and I got up on the roof and I cleaned the gutters and put my Christmas lights up. So that just begins to feel, you know, a little more like I'm getting ready for the season. And it's really tough to do because of the amount of work that Action for Canada is pumping out on a daily basis in order to try to protect our sovereignty and secure the future for our children. But anyways, I believe, you know, some people say, oh, you know, Christmas wasn't really in December. And, you know, there's some conflicting things out there about what we should be doing as Christians. And I'm like, are you kidding me? With all the attack we're under right now from all the other cultures that have come into Canada and they're trying to shut down Christmas, I'm like, my house is going to be glowing. People are going to know that Christmas is celebrated here. And I'm quite well known in the neighborhood for my Christmas light display. So make sure you guys get out there. You may be feeling fatigued, but you know what? I think it's really, really important for people to know, and especially all of the immigrants that have come to Canada, that, you know, there's something very rich about the reason of the season, and that's Jesus Christ. And if they're not going to hear it from you, where will it come? We shall not give in to the government propaganda to try to call this a secular nation or a post-national state with no core identity. I say, no way, Jose. No way, Justin Trudeau. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm remembering to do it this week. Proud of myself there. All right, and I'm always starting with the big, beautiful map. And I'm just going to keep encouraging you every week. Hopefully there's new people that are viewing this weekly news update and you've never seen our map before. So just understand that this is what we're building across the nation. We've lost some of our chapter leaders. And I hate to say it, but actually a couple have passed away and they're from some illness and, you know, others have some family issues. But we're always checking the inboxes, and we need citizens rising up because we need to keep the chapters going. We are having phenomenal success. I mean, I keep saying this is a little Gideon's army with what we're able to accomplish with the amount of chapter leaders that are so actively involved and sacrificially giving up their time. And I'm sometimes going to say day and night. They are working hard because they understand the battle. We are at war. And so we just need to keep fighting hard, but we need all hands on deck. We need your help. Every week I'm asking, please get on our Rumble page and join us. Thank you for everybody that's signing up and subscribing. Thank you to everyone who is giving us a thumbs up as well. That's really great because they continue to try to hit us hard with the thumbs down. I haven't gotten last week's Empower Hour out. I meant to do it on Sunday night, with the regular weekly news update page that we send out, but it was so filled with information that was on the Empower Hour tonight, which was super fantastic. I'll cover a little bit of that in a moment on the weekly news update. We had Michelle Stirling on, and it was a very critical conversation that we had in continuing to expose the propaganda that's associated with the natives and exploiting them. But anyways, I'm going to send these couple of videos out along with an interview I did with Talk Truth and some other information on calls to action. I think I'll do that in a separate tomorrow, but it's really important for you to share them. Give us a thumbs up, help us get our information out there. And I'm going to go back. You might have seen it was just posted just a few hours ago, but Doris is really working hard at providing the greatest resources for our homeschool community. And so we just encourage you to go to our homeschool page, homeschool webinars, just even if you do a search on the website, and you'll find these extremely helpful videos that will encourage you on your homeschooling journey. All right. Every week I keep saying, please join me on Twitter. I'm posting everything I I can on there. I try not to overwhelm, but I also, when I'm doing tons of days of research, sometimes, I'm not posting as much. But you can see I've been up to 2,387. I've gone down to, I'm not passing, I'm not getting to 2,400. And if you happen to be a Twitter expert, I want you to reach out to me. I want you to tell me what's going on. For a gal that's been at this 9.5 years with a organization that's nationwide, and so many people that are, we've got a huge membership list and so many active people. I need to understand what's going on with our social media on X, because I thought Elon Musk, I was banned. You should see, Facebook. I don't even post on Facebook anymore, at least very rarely, because I'm at the bottom of I don't know where they've got me actually on Facebook. They tried to tell me I had violated their sexual explicit policy, and they gave me our political LGBTQ page as the example. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is what's in our schools. Why are you banning me on Facebook, you nitwits? And so anyways, here we are. I keep appealing to you and asking for you to come join me on Twitter. All right, I'm going to get into some great good news report. I'm just going to play a short clip of our friend here who has been doing a phenomenal job in pushing back. He's made it his full-time job in pushing back against companies that are promoting the DEI and the LGBTQ wokeness that's harming our kids and society. And of course, you know what? We have the buying power. We are the majority. We can hurt these businesses. And for a while now, I've been thinking, oh man, we've got to go after either Costco or Walmart. They've, got their you can't freely walk into the stores anymore. They're getting ready to implement the digital passes, I think, and that you won't be able to shop there pretty soon. We've seen some videos down in the US where they had these little indicators on top of the cooler fridges. You couldn't open a door unless you had one. It's all leading towards that. And it can be a little scary for some people. And, with all their wokeness, and they have, I don't know, they have stores like not just in the US and Canada, but in other countries, and so does Costco. So these are some pretty large corporations who, of course, come into a community, and then small businesses are being shut down in favor of large corporations. So it's quite dangerous. And so this gentleman has called them out, as well as other companies who have changed course. And so I'm just going to get to it. Robbie Starcheck right here for a minute.
All right, y'all, I don't even know how to start this video because honestly, this is different than everything else we've done because this is the single largest employer in the United States. We are talking about a company that is worth almost $1 trillion on its own. As many of you know, I have been investigating a massive company now for a while, and I have kept my lips sealed on who it was. Now I can reveal it was Walmart, but something incredible happened in the course of my investigation. Walmart became aware of our investigation and reached out to me. This was critical and honestly turned out pretty fantastic for everybody involved, in my opinion. We were able to have frank conversations with Walmart. And as I've said for a long time, I don't ask companies to take on my political views. I am simply advocating for corporate neutrality. I believe that that is the future because I understand there are people in this country who do not agree with my politics. So it would not be fair of me to force my politics on them the same way that I am not okay with left-wing policies being forced on me and people like me via things like DEI. After various conversations, I am very proud to report to you guys that Walmart has decided on making some changes. I'm going to lay out what those changes are for you and explain how massive this is for our movement. We are unstoppable at this point with a 100% flip rate where we change corporate America and get them back to a culture of sanity and neutrality. Bullet point number 1, Walmart will be removing all inappropriate sexual and or transgender products that are marketed toward kids, things like chest binders for teenagers or books that encourage transitioning. That is all going to be gone. Bullet point number 2, Walmart is going to review and stop funding to all events that could be sexually inappropriate for kids. That includes drag queen story time or pride events that expose kids to sexually inappropriate topics. That's all going to stop going forward. Third bullet point, Walmart will be closing their racial equity center. This is a center they had committed $100 million to, and it was a 5-year project. They will be closing that center going forward. Fourth bullet point, Walmart will no longer participate in the HRC's Corporate Equality Index social credit system. This scoring system is what has brought wokeness into so many segments of corporate America, and we are happy to see them no longer participating. There is not a corporation in America that should be participating with the HRC's CEI scoring system going forward. The HRC got explicitly political in the 2024 election, working with everything they have to defeat Donald Trump and calling him every name in the book. It is time for companies to recognize that they need to move away from this system that is explicitly political and embrace corporate neutrality so that everybody is welcome in their stores. Fifth bullet point, Walmart.
Most excellent. Wouldn't you agree? This is exactly what we need to hear. And so I'm very, very pleased about the work that Robbie is doing. Sorry, Terenzio, I'm trying to make my screen full. I know that if you can just mark the time for a moment, and there's something odd that's covering up my ability to be able to do that. Can you see that?
It looks clear on my. It looks clear on our end.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm unable to go full screen. All right, as long as it's good with you. Thank you. All right, so are you guys excited about this? I mean, this is our buying power. This is consumer power. And I mean, if you're just going along to get along, you're not going to get these results. I very rarely go to Walmart. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went and they had, I think, 10 new staff that they were training, and all of them were immigrants. All of them were Indian. And I'm not saying, you know, if you're a Canadian citizen and you're coming and you need a job, I don't care about the color of your skin, but we know that that's not what is happening because Walmart is fully on board with this in British Columbia and every province across this country, throughout Canada. And there's been a lot of complaints about Tim Hortons. Yeah, I don't shop at Tim Hortons anymore. I haven't for a very long time. I don't go to Starbucks because of their wokeness and their trans ideology and giving hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, that kind of thing that these corporations are doing to mutilate children's bodies. Why would we give them our business? And so many people love their comforts that they're not willing to do what's necessary. When I was in Walmart, I was so upset by the fact that I'm going to just say it because this is what the government's, they're doing race baiting and they want to do it based on the color of people's skin. But there was not one white person in the Langley Walmart that was working. It's not saying they don't have some white employees, but this has been majority a European nation. And we know they're trying to destabilize it. And they know that they're trying to pit us against each other. And this is the tool that they're using. And we got to say no. But at the same time, we're not going to be silent when we see the injustice unfolding. And so if you're a Canadian, you've been here, you immigrated here 30 years ago. I have neighbors from India who are horrified by the fact that their kids can't get jobs. So let's make sure the perspective, the right perspective, is there and being spoken about. Anyways, well done to Robbie, but I just want to bring something to your attention. Back in August of 2020, I had created an action because Walmart was so tyrannical. I could go to Canadian Superstore without a mask on, but Walmart was so tyrannical that they were, I would say, abusive towards their customers. And so I had created a petition and a call to action. And here again, on August 22nd, I relaunched the petition, but I did that again because I was receiving backlash. I was receiving, emails from people who, again, unsubscribed and stopped donating to Action for Canada because we were on the front line of this fight to get the news out there and protect Canadians, save their jobs, save their lives, and get masks off children. And we were very effective in doing that. So you can see I had said here, based on some responses to the petition, it appears that science is being ignored or misinterpreted by the mainstream media and by those who were sending us some of these emails. And so I went down to break down, what was transpiring during COVID, and our petition ended up getting nearly 4,400 signatures in a short period of time. And that was sent to Walmart, and things did begin to turn around. But again, it shows you the power of when we all come together. Unfortunately, Action for Canada, being on the front line of this, we sort of have to warm citizens up to the point where we are now, where Robbie would get the kind of response he would from the population because of those brave individuals and organizations who have been on the front line with the breaking news and trying to wake citizens up and educate them. So we're seeing a massive turnaround. And so I just want to give you kudos that you're willing to step out, you're willing to engage now, you're willing to boycott these organizations, you're willing to go up and talk to management. I did that day in Walmart and I said, I'm not happy with this. And the other thing that was really disturbing is they'd made a mistake with my bill and they needed a manager and it was taking forever, like I think 10 minutes. I felt so bad, for the people that were in the lineup with me. And so they were South Asian and they start talking in another language. And I just said, stop it right there. I said, you're in Canada. You're working in, a store, you're working with the public and you need to speak English. What you do in your own private time is your business, but this is Canada and you should, we're all very grateful to be here, but you need to speak English in this place. And so the one girl was the manager and she apologized to me. And as I was leaving, she was there and we stopped again. And I says, you have a responsibility. You set the pace in this store as a manager and you have a responsibility to maintain that. You came to Canada for a reason. We are offering such a better life here. And if that's going to continue, then you need to help us out with that. So don't be rude, be factual. And you know what? They're probably just so used to being accommodated and not called out that they're not considering what is at stake here for them. This is going to turn into India. Do they want that? Do the Chinese want this to turn into China? No, they don't. Those countries are led by tyrants, and that's where Canada is going. And I have Chinese friends, and we were out one time, and they're speaking in Chinese, and I says, you guys, speak English. Like, this is Canada. You need to speak English. You need to set an example, and you need to ask all your friends to speak English. And I'm speaking from a place where when my mom, her four brothers, and my grandmother came here, they never spoke Dutch when they were out in public out of respect for everybody. And until we get a government in that is going to mandate that English is the first language, English or French are the only languages spoken in public, we're going to need to do this lovingly, sometimes on a one-to-one basis. I am tired of going, it's like the Tower of Babel. They refer to it in the Bible, and it's causing division. And my heart is always to unite us. And so let's be united when we're out in public. We need to do that. All right. Oh, the other thing that Action for Canada is doing when we're talking about businesses and what are we doing, and on the front line of as well, is we've created these amazing business resources. It's a letter to business owners. It talks to them about the 17 sustainable development goals, the trap of the environmental, social, and governance, the central bank digital currency, and all the other acronyms, diversity, equity, inclusion. Once businesses begin to sign on and get any sort of government payment, subsidies, then they are signing on to the ESG and the DEI and the CBDC and all the rest of it, and their small business or medium-sized business is doomed, because you are not then any longer able to actually hire people that are based on their experience or the quality of their work. You need to hire people based on their gender identity and the color of their skin, and that is not the way we want Canada to be run. We want it to be based on people's abilities and their qualifications. Anyways, we're gonna take another jab at creating a business committee. And so if you happen to be a business owner and are interested in helping us out, there over 100,000 businesses were shut down during COVID. And I'm sure it's way more than 100,000. It's got to be near 200,000 businesses that were shut down permanently. And the government in supporting these large corporations like Walmart, like Costco, like Superstore, etc., those are the ones that are going to be the only selection you have as far as getting groceries are concerned. And if you're worried about the future as to whether or not they're going to mandate jabs or no groceries, you can't go into the bank or unless you have a jab and you show your digital ID card. Then you need to get involved in this. We need to be reaching out one-on-one to business owners. But if we could have a business team and start inviting businesses nationwide to come and meet with us so that we could educate them en masse, I think that would just be phenomenal. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. All right, tonight we had Michelle Stirling on, and we ended up talking about a documentary that has been put out called Sugarcane. And it's taking, as it says here, two true stories, and it's just based on a hill of lies. And the purpose of it is to attack Canadian national sovereignty. And this documentary has been out for 10 months. Only the film critics, the majority, have seen it, and they've given it all these awards and thumbs up. But it demonizes Canada. And as Michelle had said, it blood libels Canada, Canadians, and Roman Catholics. And because of the hate that this film is going to cause, we are assured that more churches are going to be burning down and more Christians are going to be at risk of harm, because this is not a factual documentary. It is based, I want to say, not all fiction. They have taken some truths, but they have not told the whole truth. And Michelle was on the Empower Hour tonight to fill us in with the facts. And so that documentary will be, that Empower Hour will be in the description below. And I highly, highly recommend that you watch it, because it is critical to the existence of Canada. Between that and the Special Interlocutors report that came out on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and the mass graves, which I'll touch on in the National Post article in just a moment. That was Kimberly Murray, actually, was the Special Interlocutor, and she headed the federal probe. Now, all of this is also aligned with UNDREP, which I said here is being used as a weapon of warfare that the globalists are using in an effort to unlawfully rob Canadians of their land rights by emboldening Native groups to claim land back rights. But we know that Trudeau in 9.5 years has never done anything that would support the Native community as a whole. There have been activists who have been very loud. There have been chiefs who have received huge billion-dollar payouts. There are treaties that are against our Constitution that are being signed, and all of this needs to be revoked and undone. But what we need to do is we need to be at peace with the Natives. We need to all be treated equally, and we need to abolish a lot of what the Liberal government, the former or the senior Trudeau and his son, what they have implemented in order to push this agenda that doesn't help the Natives, but does actively and aggressively advance the global agenda. I just want to point out that within our articles, Michelle has gone into a deep dive. This lady does her research. So I really don't want to hear from anybody. I don't want to hear any negative. I don't want to receive any negative emails or that I'm a racist or a hater until if you have read this full article that Michelle has researched and provided for the public. And she comes up with evidence and facts that undoes the lies, or that exposes, the lies in the Sugarcane video. And of course, it's a very dangerous game that the directors and creators of that film are playing. And we're going to do a call to action and call them out. So this is Michelle's mini documentary, and it is very well researched and done. And I would encourage you as well. We'll have that in the description for you to watch. But I'm asking you to share all of this information with your local elected officials. You see, so many people feel that they can still trust what the mainstream media are promoting, which is, of course, the propaganda arm of the government. And so they don't mind spreading misinformation about this and creating dissension, putting Canadians' lives at risk. They don't care about churches burning down because they have an agenda. But the facts matter. I always say knowledge is power, and when you have it, you have to share it. And we need to get this information into the hands of elected officials, including Pierre Poilievre and his team, because you know what? He is very likely going to be the next prime minister, and he needs to be committed to undo all of these indigenous treaties that have been implemented during the Trudeau reign. He needs to overturn and revoke UNDRIP, and he needs to pull out of the United Nations. This is a dangerous lady right here. Kimberly Murray, I said she was the head of this report. She wants to bring in Indigenous law, decolonize empathy, and imprison denialists. And that's not a joke. She wants to make it illegal for somebody like me to provide you the facts of all of what is going on regarding the lies regarding the residential schools, the missing and murdered children, the mass graves that are empty. And understand, you know, we have the evidence to support what it is I'm saying. And I'm never saying that there wasn't harm to some people from this community, but also I want to bring a balance in that harm happens in every community. I look at people that came from the Second World War who aren't receiving a dime, and their houses were blown up, like my mom's. She had all her teeth taken out at a young age. I know she doesn't mind. She's 84 years old, and I know she won't mind me telling you this because of the purpose of it, but they had food stamps taken away from them. You know, she was a hungry child. They came to Canada with absolutely nothing. So don't tell me about, you know, the fact that this is white colonialism and we don't appreciate or understand hardship. I remember what it was like growing up, and, you know, my mom and dad working so hard. My dad had a grade 6 education when he came from England here, and he got his grade 12 equivalency. And he, while having 3 children and building a home and working, he was putting himself through school to become an electrician, and eventually had a company. My dad worked hard, and him and my mom gave us, as their children, great work ethic. And we need to pass that on to the next generations and stop all this victimization, because nobody is going to succeed then. Anyways, I won't go into the National Post report and how crazy harmful this is. This woman needs to be shut down. Like I said, when we get a new government in, all of these lies need to continue to be exposed. But please, if you have access to Pierre Poilievre, make sure that he's receiving the information that we're providing. As well, this is the news report that I sent out on Sunday night. I did a lot of research. Thank you to Michelle and the great job that she did, and tried to provide you the information so that you're not pointing the finger and kind of saying, how dare you, Tanya, be so unsympathetic, you know, towards the natives. You know what? The facts are here. I care about them. And if we aren't proclaiming the truth from the mountaintops, then this harm is just going to be perpetuated for infinity, and there needs to be a stop to it. So last year I launched this report, which I'll get to in just a moment, but Michelle has written several reports, and this one was actually on Kimberly Murray. She says, charge Kimberly Murray for hate crimes, not me, because she is perpetuating hate in this nation because of her report. And it was the National Post who said her report was absurd. And it is definitely because of the misinformation that's in here. They're grasping at straws, 1,300 pages. And so Michelle says that, you know, she could go to jail for being an Indian residential school factualist. It is important that we tell both sides of this story. Now, I want to bring also attention. I'm going to get some of this information on the page that I'll be showing you, but Jim McMurdy is a teacher who lost his job for telling the truth on history. They want to erase history in Canada and what our founding fathers, fathers of Confederation, gave to us as a gift. And we need to fight for the next generation. I'm not ashamed of what our founding fathers provided us. And there was over 600 tribes of natives there are today. They are not, the only ones that need to be considered here. They had formed no nation. They were infighting. Many of these tribes were uncivilized, and there was a lack of good food for children. There's historical documentation to provide this. And this isn't me being mean or cruel or hating on them. It's just saying that when the Europeans came, they came trading. They had something good to offer in exchange and in return. So what Jim does, instead of teaching now in classrooms, and when you go onto his website, I was so impressed and touched by students who were reaching out to him and saying, "You are the best teacher that I ever had." And, students would be so lucky to have you as a teacher. So he's phenomenal. So he takes native art, and then he goes through and he undoes it. He talks about, for instance, in this picture, how there's modern clothing on the children. And so they're taking something historical, which was actually based on lies, and he explains that. And they're trying to put this propaganda forward in the eye of the beholder right now and move what happened historically into today. And it's very devious what is transpiring, but I'd highly recommend you follow Jim. He really provides some good information. This was another video he created, and in one of the links, I was brought to this book somebody had suggested called White Slaves of the Nootka. It's 170 years old, I believe, and it is the testimony of John Jewett, who had come from British Columbia. He came into the Wanda Fuka, and it was the natives came out. They had beheaded and killed all of the crew members, and this particular gentleman was taken in as a slave, and he was treated incredibly badly. And this is at the hands of the natives. This was the actual chief right here. And so again, I think it's very important that there's more than just one story to this narrative. And I know if Christians were coming from Europe and creating, a new home, that they came with their Christian beliefs. And so there is no history that they came in here raping, pillaging, and beheading anybody. And I think that's very important for us to consider. And this is something else that just took place. Again, the government has just paid out $45 million in compensation to Inuit in Nunavik, and there was 1,000 of their dogs, which is horrible. I'm not a horrible situation in the 1950s and 1960s where the police came in and killed 1,000 of their dogs. Now, what these articles don't tell you is that there was a lot of distemper, and the dogs in the native communities, as you know, they run freely. And there were some children who had been attacked and killed, eaten by the dogs. These are some of the reports if you start to do the research on it. And then as well, this was back in 2012. They were already paid, I forget how many, $3 million. And so do you see what is every government every decade going to come in and victimize this community and pay out money? It just has to stop. We have to heal and move forward. And we're not going to do that when somebody keeps picking off the scabs and digging up old wounds. I mean, this has just gone to the point of unbelievable. And I just, on the page that I created a year ago, and you know what? I've had some criticism come back to me over the truths that everything on this page is factual. Everything is supported with facts and evidence, but we have paid out hundreds of billions of dollars to the natives. And this is on taxpayers who are not being respected or appreciated by the native community. Definitely, I'm not saying it's all the native community. I mean, native activists and these chiefs. This is a huge cash cow that's happening right now at the expense of hardworking Canadians who had nothing, zero, to do with these offenses. And anybody that's coming from any other war zone in any other horrific situation are getting zero. And this is why I'm saying it is time to put this behind us and it's time to move forward. The missing and murdered Indigenous women and children, the case is here on the page. It was already proven that 86% of the homicides were done at the hands of Indigenous people themselves. And I'm going to keep repeating the facts because it's very important. Exodus 34:12 says, "Be very careful never to make a treaty with the people who live in the land where you are going. If you do, you will follow their evil ways and be trapped." We are trapped right now by these treaties. People are Canadians are being chastised. They're feeling belittled and lowly because of offenses that took place that we had nothing to do with. And Canadians need to stand up straight, and they need to start standing up for themselves because we have a lot on the line and a lot to lose. And it is the future of this country, not only for we want to say Canadian children, the European children, but also for the Native community, because the globalists are coming. Trudeau has proven in the last 9.5 years that he doesn't care about the Natives. He has not appropriately assisted them in any meaningful way other than chiefs, and I'm talking about the chiefs activists and other activists getting paid out large sums of money. Okay, now taking a shift, this is another good news report. This was transpiring yesterday. We put out an urgent call to action. Some of our viewers will remember that Pierre Atola, he is our provincial leader in Manitoba and the Winnipeg chapter leader, and he has been working so hard. And back in August, we learned about the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region, who was sort of placed, I want to say, by the government to oversee the 18 municipalities, within the Winnipeg region. And now it's been like the slow incremental step to give the WMR control over the 18 districts so that they can implement the global plan. And so Pierre had found out about this, and we did massive campaigns in the summer, and man, we won big, and we got the second public hearing shut down. And then last week I had reported that the win was so large that I said, "Where's the second public hearing?" They said they're not even moving forward with it anymore. They realized that what they were doing was definitely nefarious, that they'd been called out on it. And we said, well, keep an eye on them because they're going to be coming out. They don't like losing ground. These people have been at this for decades. They've poured billions of dollars into these takeovers of forming these 15-minute cities, and they don't like losing. And so the WMR, it gave 48 hours to attend a meeting for their regular board meeting, and it was going to take place on YouTube. And so we put out a call to action last night. It only went to Manitoba, but I did post it on my Facebook page and on my Twitter page. And it's like this WMR has proven to be ineffective. It's unnecessary and is just another bloated bureaucracy costing taxpayers money, and therefore must be dissolved. And we need to apply pressure to the Manitoba government and the WMR to say you just need to dissolve this board that is made up of city councillors and mayors who were 100% in implementing this nefarious program to take over all of the districts so that they would have a greater, how can I say, control of implementing the 15-minute city plan. They were going to shut down thoroughfares on highways. There was going to be businesses that would be forced to shut down because patrons would have no access to them. I mean, these are corrupt people. And so I already had a report from Pierre as of this morning that the WMR were revising their agenda. And so we'll see what takes place. But, Action for Canada is doing all of this amazing work, and I just want to proclaim it every week on the Weekly News Update. And I'm going to ask you continually again, we're going into December, and not in 1 year since I've been up and running, I've said, hey, it's December. A lot of people want to donate at the end of the year, but they want to donate to organizations that give tax credits. And Action for Canada doesn't give tax credits. We're not for profit. We're not a charity organization because we've had to sacrificially actually make that decision, because there is no way we wanted the government to have access to our donors lists. We're having and dealing with such controversial issues that there's no doubt that they would have tried to shut us down as a charitable organization. So, I mean, if you were going to give $1,000 at the end of the year and you only want to give us, you know, 800, keep 20% in lieu of your tax credit, please do it. All of these organizations that are not succeeding nearly as well as what Action for Canada is doing are receiving these donations, large donations. And we are so grateful for the grassroots who are giving $20 and $100. And recently we got a $415 donation, $250 donation. Thank you so much. But for those big businesses, we're fighting so hard on your behalf. Do you understand when we shut a 15-minute city plan down, what that's doing for your business? That means that people outside of 15 minutes that do business with you are fully going to be able to continue either shopping at your store. And if these programs go into place, if this agenda continues, you are going to be shut down, and your livelihood, everything that you've worked for. And so I'm asking you to remember Action for Canada and keep us in mind in the month of December as you consider who you're going to be donating to. And if you could become a monthly donor, we would so appreciate it. So if you join me on the Action page, on the Twitter page, you would have seen that I had posted this last night. We were up late, Kim, the National Chapter Leader Coordinator, myself, and Pierre, to make sure that we got this action out to the public. But you see this, 373 views, 14 shares. And there's other individuals out there with 100,000 followers. They probably, you know, would have had a couple of thousand shares. And can you consider how fast this action would have gone out? And already in my email this morning, Pierre was sending me our members who had taken action, had written the WMR, because we give it to you step by step. We provide you the email. Who needs to be addressed. We make it so user-friendly for you. It's just a few minutes of your time. And so we're so grateful. And just with those few people, or however many people that did take action, we were, able to accomplish good things. But I want to see, and I want to understand why my Twitter page does not have 100,000 people on it, and why our actions are not more broadly being shared. All right, here's our 15-minute city page. I just want to remind you of that. You can find it under current issues. Once you click on it, you just go down, you click on 15-minute cities, and you have access. You can be handing out the 15-minute city flyers. You can be watching some of this information and sending it to your elected officials and demanding they address this issue, and that mayors and city councils stop representing unelected foreign entities and instead do their job, stop paying billions of dollars into these eco-friendly systems that they want. We know what's going on with the government right now. We know that this is a wealth transfer. We know that special friends are getting special favor and getting rich. And there is that green slush fund that Trudeau is refusing to provide the documents on. There's nothing but criminal activity behind all of this. It will not change or make any difference to our environment. If the Canadian government's really serious about this and the environment and what's going into our landfills, I'd like to see them stop bringing in all of the products from China. All these little plastic products that spend 2 days, in somebody's home, and next thing you know, they're in the garbage. And he's worried about straws. Come on, the whole thing is a farce. All right, there's our good friend Pierre. This was back in the summer, and this was the beginning of this winning campaign, and I just want to give him a big shout out tonight. And you know what? All of our chapter leaders are doing this, and they're volunteering their time. The Action for Canada could be a multi-million-dollar organization, and yet we're under $400,000 that we're raising in a year to take care of all of this. We are sacrificially giving of our time. I would be so grateful if somebody would hear about the work of Action for Canada, see our results, and start donating big time to the work that we're doing, because we are effective. Okay, this is going to freak you out. Jenny is on the team and she was telling me about these coffin homes in China. And I'm thinking about, all the high rises that are going up. And you'll notice that going up in your communities. I've traveled to Ontario. I'm seeing them in the Toronto metropolitan area where you had these nice little suburbs. And all of a sudden there's, these 50-story condos going up. And I'm just going to show you a little bit. What does a coffin home in Hong Kong look like? It looks like this. This is how people are surviving. And you know how much that Trudeau loves China and just thinks they're doing the best job ever on behalf of their citizens. This lady, she's paying $580 a month and her income is $1,290. It's a bunk bed, small couch, fridge, washing machine, with her two children, 120 square feet. But I'm going to show you what they're offering here in Whalley in Surrey. In comparison, they're probably not as junky as these. I mean, it is just disgusting. It is inhumane to think that anybody is living like this. And, oh, didn't mean for that to be in there. In here, they're called strawberry box homes, how Ottawa plans to make an old strategy new. And it goes through to show, I don't know if they're here, that after World War II, they started making these little box homes. And in this little news report, they say they want to do this, en masse. It's like it takes 36 hours to build a box home. But the thing is, they say we're not building box homes. We're going to be doing this in high rises. So you can't build that in 36 days, and I'll prove that. So here is an article by CTV News. It goes, with condos not selling, Canada faces worsening home ownership crisis. And I want to see these opportunists, these individuals, these construction gurus, that got into these builders, they're going to go bankrupt. They're going to go bankrupt because these greedy individuals thought that they would take advantage of the situation instead of saying, whoa, this mass immigration is hurting us. We got to deport 1 million people. No, they thought, we're going to go with the flow. We'll be on the front line of building these. Well, apparently they can't find people to purchase them. And because nobody wants to get a mortgage right now because they don't know where the interest rates are going and they can't handle the costs of these condos. And the fact is, if you think moms and dads with strollers are lining up at a condo projects to buy 500 square foot condominiums, they are not. And so this is very concerning. And this, of course, is China has one child if they're lucky. Trudeau is sterilizing our children, and he's going towards, eliminating the population in Canada and doing this replacement with foreigners. And he is not promoting that Canadians have children. And what are you going to do in 500 square feet with a family? It is horrible. Here are Studio and one talking about what's going on in Whalley, and these won't be available to 2026, not 36 hours in 2026. And I live about 15 minutes away from Whalley, and I was driving there. I go there very seldom now. My uncle Ed used to live there, and I was horrified at the amount of high rises that have gone up. And it was just scary. So sorry, I want to stick here for a second. Was this the one? No, but it goes studio 1 and 2 bedroom homes. Again, you can imagine the size of it. Here's only 3, or sorry, there will be 5. There's going to be 479 units in this high rise. Out of 479 units, 83 will be studios. You can see 1 bedroom, 132 bed and bed and only 3 bedroom. There will only be 5 units. So they're certainly not accommodating anybody who actually has more than 1 child. And where was the size of this one? They were very small as well. It'll be 54 stories. Here it is. Approximately for a studio and 1 bathroom, 393 square feet. So I was comparing it to these coffin homes, and they're not far off for what they're trying to pack Canadians into. And this has got to stop. I know Pierre Poilievre, and I was really quite surprised the other day, quite pleased to hear it. I believe he had said that he believes that 4.9 million immigrants should be deported. And I agree. I agree with that. And then we will start over We are demanding a moratorium on immigration for good reason, because then we need to really consider who we're bringing in and do they align with Canadian values. And we need to take a breather and we need to catch up. So under current issues, you can find some of the 15-minute city. I'm going to be talking a bit about political Islam here. Of course, I always finish up on that note as well. But first, I want to give an update on the BC elections. I was really pleased to find out that other groups and individuals are extremely upset about the BC election. They do believe that fraud has taken place. They are continuing to demand answers from the government, and so is Action for Canada. We are going to be taking steps. I thank you. Last week I had said, hey, if you want to be on the committee with me, I need research done. I need some letters written, and you can see how many things that Action for Canada is dealing with. But this is something I'm not going to give a free pass to. We're about to file our notice of civil claim, and it should have been to a new government with a new attorney general who wasn't supporting fraud in an election. So this is going to be an interesting time of it. But there absolutely needs to be an investigation. Some of the evidence that I was seeing and information coming forward is proof that we can't just sit back and allow David Eby to take this election without an investigation. And he's taken 2 months to reconvene for whatever reason. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to dig into that. But John Rustad is calling on David Eby to convene legislature, implement BC Conservatives' border security strategy amid Trump's tariff threats. Well, every single provincial leader, every premier across this country is saying the same thing. We need to talk about border security. Well, thank you for waking up, premiers. It's about time, but you know what? It's a little too late. And now we need you to help us demand that the government put a moratorium on immigration, and we need you to help us to clean up the provinces. Do what Danielle Smith is doing. I'm not saying she's perfect by any means, but she's making some progress there. But one of the areas that she is also failing in is propping up the Islamic organizations and groups that are in Alberta. It needs to be shut down. We've got one here in British Columbia, an Islamic education center, and the police have been notified that the majority of the board and directors are tied to Hezbollah. Okay, so if we report that, we expect that even though that may be a federal offense, the BC government should take interest in this. Aren't they licensed, through the municipality or the education? If they're not doing their job, shouldn't the province step in and make sure that Canadians are safe and secure? I mean, North Vancouver is a hotbed for the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, that was just deemed a terrorist organization back in June by Trudeau. Of course, he's taking no steps. So we've got lots of problems. There's 100%. Trump is right. He needs to put these tariffs in place. He needs to put pressure on, because there have been something like, 190,000 people stopped from going from the Canadian border to the United States. And I could get to one of the reports here that says how many of those people that there's very huge, massive concerns about as far as being tied to terrorism. So Trudeau, I mean, he's out of his league here. He's truly out of his league. He's already insulted Trump during, his last presidency. Trump doesn't forget these things. Everybody in the world knows that Trudeau is the worst leader that Canada has ever had. And so these are going to be interesting times. Then, I'm going to keep it kind. I'll call her by her name, Chrystia Freeland. And Mr. LeBlanc here insist Canada's border is secure despite Trump's allegations and 25% tariffs. Look at this. Here's a report that just came out in October saying massive surge of illegal migrants, including suspected terrorists, crossing border from Canada to the US. And I mean, you just go down this report. I mean, Chrystia Freeland is, not ignorant of these things. She's 100% knowing it. She's connected to George Soros. She's all about destabilizing Canada. Oh, here's another report. Look at that. This one's from November 26th. CBSA intercepts 246 kilogram of cocaine at busy BC border crossings. And this is one of 3. I think it was in the last week. And India is involved in this. You know what? Just deport these guys, send them back, partner up with Trump, and let's clean up America and Canada. And yeah, I think that Canadians and Americans would be very happy. So many people say, you know, I'm 60 years old and I'm like, I long for the good old days. I really do. And I'm fighting for that. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip, a couple of pieces of this clip. Oh my goodness, you guys. I know I'm laughing. It's not a laughing matter. I'm going to make that very clear. But first of all, look at the state of these two police officers. I'm like, is this the best you got in Toronto? Is this rent-a-cop? I mean, these may be very nice gentlemen, but they are extremely ill-informed for being police officers. They didn't even know the IRGC is designated as a terrorist organization. Are these the police that we should have out on the street daily, especially in Toronto? I mean, are they not getting educated? They should join Action for Canada. I'll educate them. I'm like, oh my goodness, it was shocking. All right, let me just play this for you for a moment.
Who is in charge of the Toronto police here? What's that? Who is in charge of all the Toronto police here? Me. Okay. May I ask your name and...
I just have to apologize. I could do nothing about the background noise, but just listen carefully to the dialogue here.
Badge number, please. Yeah, it's McDuff, 99630. 99630. Yeah. You see IRGC flag over there? Let me show you. I have the picture. What about it? IRGC is a terrorist organization. Are you gonna stop yelling at me? I'm not yelling at you. You are yelling at me. No, I am not yelling at you. No. Can I talk with this though? Yeah, you put the camera away, I'll talk to you, but I'm not talking to you filming me. Why? Because I won't. You want to talk to somebody? Yeah. Put the camera away. The previous time I put talking. Why you are afraid of removing the... I don't want to be a part of your platform here. I'm here to keep the peace and make sure this is done peacefully. Keep the peace and IRGC flag over there. How you go in Canada? Yes. Yeah? Okay, yes, well, I'll show you someone to look at it. No, go on, look at that. Right now, I'm going to show it to you. What about the Hamas symbols, the upside-down triangles? What Hamas symbols? No. The upside-down triangle right there. Interpretation is not interpretation in Canada. This is the IRGC flag. Yeah. Sir, this is the IRGC flag. IRGC listed as a terrorist organization. In Canada? Yes. So I'd have to look into that. I'm going to show it to you right now. Government of Canada lists the IRGC as a terrorist entity. You can see that Canada.ca. I can. And it happened in June. You're right. Okay. That's a fact. Excuse me. So I'm...
Okay. He gets out his phone. He's like, gonna make a call to headquarters. What do I do? You know, what do I do? I mean, can you believe this? I was shocked. I got to imagine that you as viewers are shocked by this as well. Who's training these guys? This is frightening. When you've got these extremists, is this possibly the reason why the Palestinians are roaming through the streets with their Hezbollah flags and nobody's taken them down and taken them out? It's frightening, my friends, but this is the state of Canada. Okay, this was just a news report. Canadian urban Kohler. Oh, that we had discussed last week. I'm not sure how that one slipped in there. I'll just, oh, I know why. It was because of it's been all over the news about the IRGC. So sorry, I shouldn't have closed those so quickly. But there's no way. I mean, how would this individual, this police officer who's in charge, not know that the IRGC is designated a terrorist, a very dangerous terrorist organization? Okay, so you all know about Trudeau this week dancing in the streets as Montreal was burning down, and you know, the Palestinians were out, and there was Hamas, Hezbollah. I had somebody else recently tell me who was sort of in a situation, a security situation, had entered into a building to get people out safely because of Palestinians, and that there was Soros people there paying the protesters. So for anybody who saw the thousands of Palestinians show up in the streets, this is all intentional. It is to get a reaction out of you. It's to instill fear in you. And Mr. Trudeau, and there's some very interesting videos going around social media right now with Trudeau being tied to Diddy and abuse towards children. And here he is at a concert, Taylor Swift concert, with all these young teenage girls. And even there was a video I saw today where the teenage girls are, what's he doing here? Like, people would want to call him a pedo or something. Because why would you go out and dance with young girls? Again, this is all part of the psychological warfare against Canadians. I mean, there was a lady in Australia talking about what a joke he was today, and that how odd it is for him to be around these young teenage girls. But when you hear about all of the P. Diddy stuff coming out and the individuals that are associated to that, I also watched another very interesting 2 hour. I'd never take the time to spend 2 hours to watch interviews, but it was this lady who was brought into the sex trade as a very young girl. Her mom had brought her in, and then she was around all of the Rockefellers and others she was naming, who were part of this inner circle. So a lot of stuff is coming out right now. I never ever talk about it, but I just found this particularly disturbing, especially knowing that all of this other information is out there and ties to his father as well. So we'll let those who do that kind of investigating continue the investigating. And if there is something there, I've always said I believe Justin Trudeau will be the first one removed from office. I don't know what for, but time will tell. And I think that the truth will always come to light. The lies can never stay hidden. And I think that's another reason why to be really praying for Canada. Prayer is absolutely the most powerful thing, I believe, behind the work that we're doing, that will take the lies that are being exposed, will take the information that Action for Canada is doing, and just create some very good results. Okay, I just want to close up. Somebody had sent me, I've talked to you a lot about the Islamic schools, and MAC is the organization that I told you last week, I believe, who is under investigation from the CRA for being tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. I've warned you before about all of the Islamic schools that are nationwide, well, in Ontario, but this just shows you how MAC has schools nationwide. And then on this list as well, you'll see MAC. This is the one that I've shown you from Ontario. And if we were to go down, there again is MAC, and here again is MAC and MAC. And so many of these schools are tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, foreign funding that is involved with radical extremism. And so I'm hoping and praying that the CRA is going to take away the charitable status of this organization, that the investigation will continue, and that these schools will start to be shut down. And I just really feel like God laid it on my heart that every school, Islamic school, mosque, and center that is tied to extremism, that is being surveillanced from the RCMP, every single one of them need to be shut down. And once that happens, a lot of these people are going to leave because these are hotbeds for terrorism. And that's not just me saying that, that's based on fact. Go and talk to or just view, a mosque, and you'll see not all of them. I don't know, actually, might be all of them that are being surveillanced by the RCMP using our tax dollars. So not only are they coming in as migrants, and we're paying them $250 a day or $242 a day, then they're opening up these schools and facilities, and we have to pay for the RCMP to be monitoring them. It's just such a mess. We need good government. We need to vote in people who embrace the foundation of this nation, which was built on Christian principles. It's far superior to any other culture that I've studied or seen out there. And I hope that you won't just, reject what I'm saying, but you'll actually look into what I'm saying because it's truthful, it's factual. These are just reports that you can find on the page to share with others. I would love to send it to that police officer and say, hey, take a lookie on here. Take a look at the Rise of Political Islam report. You'll be, horrified. This is the length of this report. It's not all reading. A lot of it's links to prove and back up what it is, that I'm saying within the report, even as far as Sharia law that's being implemented nationwide, and the terrorist organizations that are being able to operate in Canada that are listed by the FBI as terrorist organizations. So we've got work to do, but we're making advancements. Like I say, there's an organization that we accumulated information on that is completely tied to terrorists and terrorist activity. And so we'll see, what the officials do about that and what the police do about it. So stay tuned. We might have some good news report in the near future. I'm very happy today when I updated the page. I'm going to do it again one more time. Oh, we're at 5,001 signatures on this. It should be 50,000, 500,000. I think the majority of Canadians understand we need a moratorium on immigration. I reached out to Citizen Go because somebody on Twitter the other day said, hey, can you send an active link when I posted this? And I saying like, that is an active link. And they say, yeah, no, we can't access it. So if you've had problems signing the petition, would you please reach out to us at call2@actionforcanada.com and let us know if you're having problems signing this petition. Because every time it's signed, Justin Trudeau, Mark Miller, and the Attorney General and others are receiving a copy of it. And that's applying pressure. Can you imagine if that had 500,000 signatures? Okay, so come on, help me out. All right, so please donate to Action for Canada if you find the work that we're doing is beneficial to Canadians. I think it is. I love other organizations that are working hard as well, but none of them offer what Action for Canada is, or the resources, or the boots on the ground within communities in a very organized manner, with a true strategy and a campaign that's unfolded with all the resources we need to effectively address these very serious issues. All right, next week we have our good friend Brian Peckford coming on. He is the last living signatory of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I received an amazing email from him today. I'm on his email list. You could sign up with him as well. He's got a Substack and he blogs. And he was talking about how this is a Christian nation. And 100% it is. And he said that it isn't based on other gods. There's been some sort of Supreme Court ruling where it was like, all these fake gods that are coming into our nation right now, these false gods that are being set up by their cultures, that they trump our Christian God, because Trudeau has said we're secular. He says we're a post-national state. So the true one and only God of the Bible and of the universe, who created the world and everything in it, and what he created was good. And there is, however, evil in the world, and evil, the devil, hates creation and hates God, and so he's just trying to destroy everything. So we as a nation need to get back to God. And I thought, what better time to have Brian on than December, as we go towards Christmas and celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And as Brian said, you know what? He was there in person. He can give testimony that every single one of the signatories were Christians, and they believed in only one God. So the charter only refers to one God, the God of the Bible. So amen to that. All right. And then in closing, the Bible verse that I have chosen was Matthew 7:13-14. Jesus said, wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. And so, my friends, I want everybody in Canada to find that narrow road, because that narrow road is Jesus Christ. And I love an image in the mind. It shows, if you could see this wide road and everybody's there, and there's, rooms with drunks that are leaning out the buildings and drinking and other nefarious things and evil things that are going on in the streets. And then they have a vision. I'm going to try to get that image on my screen before next week, of the narrow path. And that's choosing a godly life. And of course, that means that, we're going to live according to the word of God, that we're going to defend the sanctity of life from the beginning of life to natural death. And we are going to, like I say, value infants in the womb, and we're not going to be shy about saying, abortion is wrong and it's outside of God's will. And a lot of you have a knee-jerk reaction right now. It's like, oh, there's the woman's right to choose. And it's like, no, when you have that choice, you're now thinking about another little person, and that person has a right to live. But the thing is that if we were getting all of this sexualization of our children out of the schools, there are so many abortions. It's become abortion industry, of course, through Planned Parenthood. And so kids in school are being taught at a very young age to become sexual, to experiment, and to have sex. And we're not teaching about waiting until marriage and the beauty of abstinence and the purity that God had in mind for us, and that it's even proven that marriages where both of the spouses wait, that those are the most successful and strongest communities. And so there's so many things about the Word of God, about honesty, about integrity, just living a life and managing your finances. That means you don't go out and spend beyond your means, because right now Canadians are so far in debt, and they're paying a high price for it, because the media and the movies, they don't teach about spending within your means. These are different things that are in the Word of God. Every aspect of your life, God has said, I got a plan for you, and I have a better way. And the world provides you something much grander looking, but it leads to death. And so I choose the narrow path, and I hope you'll join me on that. Comes with great joy and great contentment. I don't feel like I'm losing out because I'm not at the bars drinking, or, out buying that big boat and putting myself in debt and being stressed over that, or living outside of my means. And God blesses us when we live according to his word. And I challenge you to test him on that. Start living according to his word, and I think you'll be delighted. It's not saying living the life of a Christian is easy. As I've professed previously, I've had some hard things happen in my life, but I know who my Savior is, and I know where my peace comes from. So I want you to have peace, and I want Canada to be a peaceful nation again. So just on that, I hope you'll join us next week. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
Hi, this is Action for Canada's Prepper Dan to let you know that we have partnered up with Rainbow Seeds once again to offer you incredible deals this fall, which is the best time of year to order your garden and flower seeds. Rainbow Seeds offers variety packs of seeds, usually comprising of 10 or more packages in each package. Be it for vegetables or herbs or teas, these offer an incredible value for your dollar. Now, if tomatoes is your thing, Rainbow Seeds offers 43 different varieties. Beans, 34 different varieties. If carrots is your thing, they offer 14 different varieties, 16 of corn. Cucumbers, 14. What about lettuce? 39 different varieties. At Rainbow Seeds, there is no shortage of different varieties of all kinds of vegetables. They even offer fruit. All Rainbow Seeds are non-GMO, guaranteed to sprout within 60 days upon delivery, and they carry many heirloom varieties. Not sure what to get for the avid gardener in your home or your family? Gift certificates are available in the amounts of $10, $25, or $50. But that's not all. Free shipping is available on all orders over $50 anywhere in the USA or Canada. But there's more. Enter the code ACTION20 in the coupon box at checkout and get 20% off your total order. What a deal! Now is the time to get those perfect gifts that keeps on giving for the next year. Find Rainbow Seed online at rainbowseed.ca, or you can find them at Rainbow Seeds New Brunswick on Facebook. Now's the time to prepare for your growing season next year and get rid of the winter blues before they even come. And on that note, happy shopping and happy gardening.
putting chapters across the nation. We are going to be in every town and every city, and we are going to build communities within these communities of like-minded people who are actually going to care for one another again and love on each other and give each other the help when they're down. We are going to use the teams and the people that build within chapters to support our businesses. The government's actions are completely 100% unlawful. Judgment will again be found on justice, and those with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says he will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation had turned our backs on him and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.
From coast to coast, we stand so tall. The love of God we give our all, and every battle, big or small, together we win it all. We fight for freedom and for rights, which they turn darkness into light. In every heart we feel his might, and through his love we win the fight. Action for Canada, we unite, joining hands with foes or fights. Action for the Canada, we stand tall. With love and faith we can win it all. We all up high, all up wide, we lift it high, and with God we'll soar into the sky. Our people fed up with these lies, but together they can't even try. Come with us and feel the power, grace and love in every hour. Look around, it's now or never. Live the life you were meant to live. Actions for Canada, we unite, joining hands with foes on fight. Action for the Canada, we stand tall. With love and faith we can win it all. We all up high, we all up We hold our flag, we lift it high, and with God we'll soar it to the sky. Our people fed up with these lies, but together they can't even try.